just want to have fun. I don't, do they? I honestly don't know anymore. I think this episode broke me in a way that I never anticipated. My one prevailing thought through this entire thing was just, seriously, that's what you're going with? Okay, fine, it is what it is, and I'm just gonna do my best to sally forth and not think too hard about anything that just happened. So we start off in this kind of typical Greek/New Zealand forest, and Xena and Gabrielle are wandering around, just kind of chillaxing. Meanwhile, someone else is getting chased through, one assumes, these same woods by some very artsy camera angles. Also by some wolves, and just make it through, just gotta make it through, by the Bacchae. Because apparently, the Bacchae are vampire werewolves, because it's not like you have to pick Team Jacob or Team Edward. No, they have united, and it's terrifying, but not in the way they intended. And they're little werewolves, and they're chasing, and you don't want to get bit by a Bacchae, no, because if you get bit by a Bacchae, then you have to be a Bacchae forever and ever, and I don't know, because, you know, there doesn't seem to really be an upside to this whole Bacchae thing, because I'm telling you, we meet Bacchus later on. There is no wine. You just have to party like it's 1996 and you're in a really bad club, and it's just kind of underwhelming. But the point is, that's not the point. The point is that the person being chased through the woods is like Joxer, my boyfriend. Anyway, Joxer's there, and I'm very excited about this, but it turns out that he is there for plot. Because somehow or other I wasn't actually paying attention. I mean, come on, seriously, did you really think I was gonna pay attention? Joxer has this bag, and there's like a head in the bag. I don't even know, but it's the head of Orpheus, and it's really hilarious because they have to come up with so many ways over the course of this episode to do this magical talking head shtick. Sorry, this is my favorite, actually. Orpheus gives like this great big exposition dump explaining about how the Bacchae have his body or something. I don't really know. But the important part is that to give this speech, Joxer sits down with Orpheus's head in its crotch. So, like, I don't even know how to describe it, but you have a magical talking crotch, and it's Orpheus who's doing the talking, and it's Joxer's crotch in question. And I don't know if it's the worst thing I've ever seen, the best thing I've ever seen. It's certainly among the most magical things I've ever seen, but it's not even the lower limit, really, of the absurdities that will happen in this episode. So Xena and Gabrielle and Joxer go off to find some Bacchae because they have this plan where they're going to find Orpheus's lyre, and they will play the lyre, and Orpheus will sing, and that will turn the Bacchae asleep, and then he will get his body back? I don't really understand how this is supposed to work. But anyway, they go off searching for Bacchae. And it turns out that when you search for Bacchae, they're kind of easy to find because they're the ones who are listening to the worst 1996 rap music in ancient Greece, and but yes, so there's this giant, trippy camera angle dance party, and Gabrielle is all dancing with the Bacchae, and that's great, and Xena is off in some alley somewhere fighting the Bacchae, and that's great too. And Joxer's there with like Orpheus's head on a stick. This episode is going to kill me. So Joxer and Gabrielle spend the next few scenes being a little concerned over whether or not Xena got herself bitten by a Bacchae, because that would be bad. And that would be particularly bad if you were the star of your own TV show, because, you know, Xena Warrior Princess is what you're aiming for, not necessarily Xena Vampire Werewolf Bacchae his fangs dance sexy like it's 1996 time. Although, you know, that could be a really good show too, and honestly I'm surprised they didn't go in that direction from the get-go, but the point is we want to stay with Xena Warrior Princess. we learn that the only way to kill a Bacchae is with a dryad bone, straight to the heart. But it is time to put our magical Xena goggles on once more, because apparently, in the Xenaverse, a dryad is not a gentle tree spirit. No, a dryad is a magical, flying, dragon, bone creature thing that attacks Xena and Gabrielle and Joxer. And then, oh no, Gabrielle is a Bacchae, and she gets all fangy and yellow contacty and starts like jumping around because she's now on wires and can fly. But Gabrielle runs off into the catacombs, and so Xena and Joxer and Orpheus Head are all gonna go follow her into there and figure out what they can do to make everything right. But honestly, I can't even pay attention to any of this, because now that Gabrielle is a Bacchae, she spends all of the rest of these scenes as they're traveling through the catacombs as like ceiling Gabrielle or like pinata Gabrielle, just like swinging back and forth on these wires, and I'm sorry, it's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. Anyway, eventually we make it to the big fight, because of course there's a big fight. At some point in his proceedings, Joxer manages to get himself over to the lyre and kind of plays this blink, 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 I don't even know, song. And Orpheus starts singing along to it, and his version of singing along is just kind of la 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 la. It is really bad, and honestly, I was expecting more from you, Orpheus. I'm sorry, but it's true. And all the Bacchae hear this beautiful, mellifluous sound and, you know, faint. And Xena manages to stab Bacchus, but oh no! Because apparently you can only kill Bacchus if you're a Bacchae, and I don't really understand it, and nor do I really understand how they get away with the whole killing a god thing. But with the understanding now that only a Bacchae can kill Bacchus, Bacchus sends Gabrielle to make Xena a Bacchae. Somehow, Xena manages to kill Bacchus. I don't really know. I was just in such brain pain by this time. Xena kills Bacchus, and all of the Bacchae instantly, even the ones who were his forever, turn back into their normal human selves, and Orpheus magically has a body again, and then he's all like, bye Xena, bye! And then he disappears because he's going back to Hades, and nothing in this episode makes any sense whatsoever. And you would think that I would be used to this by now, but, you know, I felt like we were kind of on a roll, Xena, and we were kind of going in this hand in hand, and we knew what we were getting into, and then all of a sudden, you throw me an episode of, like, there are no words. There are no words to describe what happened in this episode. But you know what? No, it's all worth it, because this episode had Joxer. And you know how I feel, people of the internet, about Joxer. Because Joxer tries to come along with Xena and Gabrielle in the end, and he's all like, hey, OT3! And they're like, OTP. And there's just this shot of Joxer in the back of the screen as Xena and Gabrielle start walking off, where he's just like, farewell, my warrior chums, and I could not have more hearts for eyes if I tried. And that's on you, Joxer. Thanks. No blood-sucking Bacchae were harmed during the production of this motion picture. However, a few dryads did lose their heads.